Good morning, dear students. Now, this is from the subject research methodology and seminar, and we are now on chapter 2, choosing a research project and writing proposal. The introduction will be talking about the requirement of writing a good research proposal, which is the most difficult task in the total activity. See, because the computing field is extremely diverse, covering a vast range of topic areas from sociological and management issues to highly technical hardware and software developments. It is not always easy to decide on a suitable project for your degree. The type of projects that are accepted in different universities may also vary. As well, academic departments in different universities have different standards with regard to content, evaluation, analysis, and literature surveys. So this chapter will introduce you with how to write an acceptable research project proposal, and also offer some hints on choosing the good supervisor from your institution. Choosing a project. Identifying your project can be the most difficult stage of all. Since you are going to pursue the project for a period of 12 months to 2-3 years, depending on the type of degree you are currently in, you have to keep these points in your mind, which will help you to achieve the objectives. You must be capable of doing the proposed project in the time that's available. These points to correctly plan your project activities that should not be overly ambitious, in the sense that you should not take a large task that will go beyond the time that you have to complete your project. However, as part of your project activity, you may want to broaden your knowledge by developing new skills or enhancing your existing skills. So make sure that you allow sufficient time for all these tasks. Choosing a project that interests you. Remember that you will be working on your project for probably 6 months or more. It is important that you enjoy your work and do not become bored or less motivated during this time. Also, consider your personal development and choose a project that will assist you in your goals. In recent years, higher education institutions have promoted the concept of personal development planning for their students. The personal development planning is defined by Higher Education Academy 2008. States a structured and supported process undertaken by an individual to reflect upon their own learning, performance, or achievement, and to plan for their personal educational career development. So, through personal development planning, individuals can identify their aspirations regarding personal development and decide how best to achieve these aims. Your project should have serious purpose and clear outcome that will benefit someone. So, you have to make sure that your project is a real project. Most of the time, some people go in for an imaginary project, thinking about a non-existing firm. But it is better to go in for a project for a real firm where there are real problems need to be handled. Armed with the advice from your supervisor, the students shall implement what they feel is appropriate, particularly with regard to the real client for whom they are working. Motivation tends to slip as students realize their software will never be used by a real firm but will only sit on a shelf and gather dust after all their hard work. So make sure that you go in for a project for a real client solving their real-time problem. Once you secure a real client, you will feel motivated knowing that you are working for someone rather than by your own imagination. Your project has to have a clear outcome in terms of deliverables that focuses your work and direction. Without a clear target, you may lose focus and motivation as your project progresses. Your project links suitably with your degree course. This you have to ensure that you choose a particular type of project work that is very much closely related to the course that you are currently on. The project idea is something that interests you. So see to it that choose the project research project from the subject that you have really an interest. The resources you require for the project should be available either within the institution or for the organization to whom you are working, or it should be available through some of your contacts. Techniques and information sources. As you choose a suitable project, you have to exploit the available techniques and information resources that are at your disposal. But you have to be cautioned about that sometimes the departments, they have listed already the type of projects that can be undertaken by the student. So you should have a good knowledge about these lists and see to it that the project of your choice falls well within this category. Techniques and information sources. You can go for industrial projects. If you have spent an year as part of your course or working part-time, your past or present company may have a project, can offer you the idea that you are looking for. Alternatively, your supervisor, friends or family might have industry contacts. So as you see, one option was to take the requirement of the industry where you are partially attached and choose that as your project. and then submit to your academic organization for approval and then go ahead with it. But however, there will be, some issues that you always have to handle in the sense that the company's objectives of the project may not be suitable as the academic objects and deliverables that are accepted by your university or institution. Or if your supervisor is asking you to go ahead in your project in one direction, which is probably could be different compared to that one, what was suggested or required by the industry. Secondly, the industry contacts need not be always stable. There could be a movement in the sense that the staff that you know or the person who helped you in the industry to obtain this task as a project could move on and may not be available by the time you will complete the project. Thirdly, getting access to industries, if you are not already attached to it, may be really difficult, and the industries may not be willing to open up their know-hows and the tasks to an external body. Fourthly, as an outsider working for the company, assuming that you are already granted the task, how much they will be cooperating in allowing you to access the files, data, and the people whom you need to contact for your project purpose. So finally, you will have to access the hardware, software you need to undertake your project. So just, there are so many issues that you may have to handle. Keep these things in your mind. Lastly, the past projects that is available in the university or your department shelves could also provide you a good guidelines about how to work with the ideas and how to develop them, and what kind of a scope and amount of work that is expected academically from you. You may look at the PhD research documentation that's available online also, which can give you a very good idea from where you can start. You may have to look at the area where they have mentioned for the further work. Okay, so that could be a good point from where you can start, and then look for a gap that you can achieve to accomplish. Talking with colleagues. Your peers can offer a different perspective of the idea that you already have. So this can be helpful in highlighting potential shortcomings of your intended project. Reading around the subject areas like books, journals, and articles on a topic that interests you can also help you identify a topic that is useful for research and development. Clustering. Now, most of the time, when you want to pursue a project in a particular field, but you are unsure exactly which aspects of the topic to focus upon. So clustering can help you identify aspects within a topic area and the links of the subtopics that they have with the main topics. Clustering is performed in two stages. First, you should list keywords related to your topic area. Second, once you have exhausted all the words and phrases you think of, you cluster them into related groups and patterns. By doing this, you can identify specific areas that interest you and form the basis for your intended project. Clustering can be done using some diagrams, affinity diagrams, like RTM, research territory maps, relevance trees, spider diagrams, etc. The RTMs will identify specific topics you might wish to focus on within larger subject areas for broader studies. Interrelated subjects that are dependent and require investigation can be modeled using the research territory maps. The research territory maps can be used to identify the related areas under the topic of your interest and the interlinks between these related areas. Relevance trees, discussed in more detail by Sharp and others in their research paper, and Saunders and others also have discussed about the relevance trees. So relevance trees are different from research territory maps in the sense that they break down a particular subject or research question into lower and lower levels of details, identifying how a subject is composed or identifying the factors affecting the research questions posed. So when you see the RTM, they provide a holistic interpretation of the field of study, while relevance trees provide a hierarchy of the topic that constitute that field of study. The figure shows also a spider diagram. .1. Remember that the relevance trees and spider diagrams are structured by you to represent your own interpretation of your chosen subject area. So, what will happen? The relevance trees or research territory maps or spider diagrams that you prepare under your area of interest can be very much different when prepared by another researcher who is also working similarly on your research. So they both can be totally different, and you don't have to worry about the standards that one person has followed. So whenever you are struggling to have a project idea, there are different methods that you may follow. The first one is brainstorming. When you are unable to finalize on a project idea, you may just start picking up a piece of paper and start writing all your project ideas in any order as quickly as possible. It could be totally irrational ordering, but when you are finally exhausted with all your ideas, look at each one in turn and evaluate and assess them in more depth. Sometimes what you thought is ridiculous could be your best idea and will emerge and give you a scope. Next is chapter breakdown. Once you have an idea of your project identify how your project work can be broken down into a number of chapters. And if it doesn't come out to be more than 2 or 3 chapters, then you may have to rethink about your idea. On the contrary, if your project work is going beyond 7-8 chapters, then you may have to relook at it also, as that could be probably too long. You see here the relevance tree for the artificial intelligence. You see application areas, AI techniques, knowledge representations, philosophical issues, and then under application areas you have mundane tasks, expert tasks. Under AI techniques you have different activities like search techniques, machine learning, expert systems. Under knowledge representation you have semantic networks, rule-based systems, frames, predicate logic, right? All these things, could be placed in this form of relevance trees, and then you can understand how they are related to each other and how they will make sense under your project. The spider diagram here is shown. As you see here, this is a spider diagram for software engineering. So under software engineering, you have different interrelated tasks like activities, support elements, techniques, methods, models, and stages, right? So under all these discussion, you do have further sub tasks that are placed here, and most importantly, how they are all interrelated with each other. This is what the objective of spider diagram, which could help you in finalizing your area of interest. Additional considerations. Now, after identifying your project, think about these things. The so what test. In order to ensure that you have chosen a project that does not have a little value, you have to conduct this test. As per Herbert in his research paper, says that ask yourself, is the topic meaningful? If you complete the project successfully, will it be of value to anybody? What contribution will it make? Pursuing a meaningless project can lead to poor motivation as your project progresses and you begin to question the point of your work. Justification. Can you explain and justify your project to someone on the streets? If you can, then it means that you have a good understanding about your project. And if you're finding it difficult to do so, it means that you lack sufficient clarity about the topic. Second, enumerating your understanding. Now, if you can enumerate your understanding on the subject, like 20%, 30%, 70%, 80%, right? So, if you can do that, it means that you have an idea about your project, and the number that you have offered will give you an idea about whether you can go ahead in that area. But if you cannot enumerate your understanding, well, I think, you may have to rethink about what you're doing. Lord Kelvin stated that when you can measure what you are speaking about and express it in terms of numbers, you know something about it. When you cannot measure it or cannot express it in numbers, your knowledge is a meager knowledge and of unsatisfactory kind. So this idea of being aware of the sum total of your understanding about a specific topic is sometimes referred to as meta-knowledge. So you may have to look at your meta-knowledge in terms of the world knowledge and how does it place itself in terms of the real world will make you understand how good your idea is. Additional considerations, contacts. So when you identify the contacts you require for your project, some of the aspects that you have to consider are whether they are available, accessible, are they willing to help. Orna and Stevens in 1995 in their research paper suggest that as you identify your research area, you also think about what relevant information you already know or have access to. So this will help you clarify your strengths and weakness and form a foundation for your RTM or relevance tree or spider diagram. You might also identify what you want to learn by conducting your project. What are your educational objectives? Are there any skills you would like to develop? New programming languages or skills that you wanted to master, etc. Ethical issues. Most institutions have procedures in place to assess, evaluate, monitor and control ethical issues when approving students' projects, research projects. While these concerns were originally aimed at projects involving medical or sociological, drug testing, vulnerable groups and hazardous codes of practice developed have spilled over into all disciplines. So most projects in computer science and information systems generally do not raise ethical issues because they are innovative that are not already done, and you have already reference to those already completed projects. If you plan to involve others in your project, conduct a survey or develop a system for a vulnerable group. Undertaking action research, that is working with the people, developing a database to store personal data, you may have to obtain ethical clearance for your project from the department or university or from any other external agency. As there is a Data Protection Act we are going to talk about in the next slide. Most institutions do have an ethical advisory committee. Probably the quality assurance department is what we are talking about in our university, that is Bulihora University. The data protection. So if your project will handle any personal information relating to living people, then you may have to be aware about the Data Protection Act, DPA, introduced in 1998 in United Kingdom, so that you do not have any legal complications. If your data includes the living person's name, address, exam grades, medical data, telephone numbers, anniversaries, etc., well, you may have to really consider the following things. 1. Data should only be used for the specific purpose for which it was gathered. 2. Individuals have the right to access data held about them. 3. Data may not be disclosed to third parties without permission of the individuals. 4. If personal data are kept, these data must be appropriately protected. 5. Personal data should be kept for no longer than the necessary period. Recruiting participants. Now, if you are planning to bring those people who are related for your research survey, then you may have to consider the following points. 1 is selection criteria. Will this be unbiased and lead to a reasonable cross-section of participants? 2. What consent will be required from participants or from their parents or guardians? 3. Will there be any financial incentive or otherwise to take part, which may affect the objectives of the result? 4. Will participants be able to withdraw at any stage? Should this be allowed? Will any deception be involved? Etc. Vulnerable groups. Suppose that you are going to include children, pregnant women, elderly people above 65 in your data collection. Well, you may have to get the clearance, ethical clearance, from the necessary bodies. And it is also suggested that, if possible, you may not include these people and their views in your research. Training. Whether any training is required for these participants, whether that is within the scope of your task, ambition, all these things need to be clearly stated in your project proposal itself. Preparing a project proposal. In most institutions, preparing the project proposal for your project is very important, in the sense that forms the basis for assessing your work or to accept your work. This proposal can serve as a contract between you and your department and project supervisor, whether your scope and quality of work is acceptable. While preparing the project proposal, you may have to keep in mind these two golden rules. 1. Follow any guidelines precisely. Most institutions require specific information, for example, project title, objectives, research requirements, and so forth. 4th, failure to complete these sections may mean your proposal is rejected without even being read. Number 2, proofread thoroughly and get someone else to check it. Any errors and omissions will appear sloppy and put your commitment and proposed project in a bad light. However, there is no universal standard for project proposals, but there are examples in this text that you can use it to consider and include in the implicit and explicit content sections. Implicit content. In general, your proposal should address 5 principal areas. 1. Introduction to the subject area. This will provide the reader with an understanding of the field in which your project lies. 2. Current research in the field. This will emphasize that your project is not based on a field that is out of date and that you are aware of current issues within the field of study. 3. Identify a gap. You should be able to identify some aspect of the field that requires further investigation or study. 4. Identify how your work fills the gap. Having identified a gap in your field, your proposal should show that your project intends to fill up this gap. 5. Identify risks and solutions. It is also useful in a project proposal to highlight any risks our project might face and the ways you envisage dealing with them. Explicit sections. Most common sections that project proposals should include are stated here. If you receive no guidance as to the content of your project proposal, include these things carefully. 1. Title. This should be clear and concise. Try to avoid acronyms, etc. You can see the example of some clear titles here. evaluation of soft systems, methods and analysis tools in small software houses, artificial neural networks for software development cost estimation, development of process models for building graphical software tools. Aims and objectives. When you say aim, we are talking about the highest level of hope of what you are trying to achieve with your project. So when we say an aim, it's a broad statement of intent that identifies your project's purpose. Objectives, on the other hand, identify specific measurable achievements that build towards the ultimate aim of your project. Objectives are more precise as they are quantitative and qualitative measures by which the completion of the research project will be judged, from the research paper of Turner in 1993. The objectives represent major components of your project that direct your work activity. From Weiss and Vysotsky in 1992 research paper. Preparing the project proposal. So now you may have to look at what is that your project proposal shall have. Identifying aims and objectives clarifies both for you and the reader what you specifically hope to achieve with your project. So one, aim should be there. Actually, you have seen the affinity diagram before. So from that we are just going to talk about the preparation of the proposal. Aim is evaluate artificial intelligence techniques for modeling weather patterns. Objectives, identify and evaluate existing weather pattern modeling techniques. Identify, design and develop at least 3 artificial intelligence systems for modeling weather patterns. Compare and contrast the developed systems with one another and existing approaches to modeling weather patterns. Expected outcomes and deliverables. In this section, your proposal will identify precisely what you intend to submit at the end of the project. Keywords. Keywords are used to identify the topic areas your project draws on. People will use the keywords to see at a glance what subjects your project relates to or what they are really looking for. If there is a match, they will go and scroll through. Otherwise, they will skip it. So keywords are very important. Introduction, background, overview. This section provides an overview of your project and introduces the background work to it. So you need to elaborate the details about the field and the background of the problem for which you are looking for the solution. We are continuing with the preparing the project proposal. Related research. So this section is very important as your research project cannot start without related literatures. The more it is good if you choose them from a peer-reviewed journal other than taking references from the locally available journals and to start your project work with. The type of the project, you may have to mention exactly what type of the project that you are undertaking, like whether it is a research based, whether it is development based, or you are evaluating 2 different systems in a given background, etc. You may also have to identify the research questions and hypotheses and place them in your project proposal. Examples of research questions are: does the size of an organization affect its commitment to software quality standards? What is the relationship, if any, between software maintainability and coding structure standards? Is there any optimum solution to the prediction of software development costs? How do large organizations maintain quality standards in the development of internal software. So, if you see, according to Verma and Bird in 1981, state that it is important that you include a hypothesis. A hypothesis, according to them, is a tentative proposition which is subject to verification through subsequent investigation. So you need to have research questions. At the same time, you also have some hypothesis on which you are going to research to get the answers for the research questions that you have placed. For example, suppose your project intends to answer the fourth research question posted above, then one of the following hypotheses might be investigated. One, large organizations invariably employ recognized standards to maintain internal software quality. The second hypothesis is large organizations generally have quality departments which oversee the implementation of procedures that ensure the quality of internal software. So it is also worth mentioning the importance of maintaining research symmetry. Methods. In the method section, you have to describe the research and project methods you will use in performing your project. So this section should not identify methods that you might be investigating as part of your subject, but those methods that you are actually using. It might include development methods that you are using as a part of a system development, survey methods for a case study evaluation, and evaluation methods for comparing two or more systems. Research methods would include those that we already talked about in action research, case study, survey, and experiment. Resource requirements. You might need to identify any resource requirement for your project, such as hardware, software, and access to particular specific systems. So let us look at actually what aspects of this must be there in the proposal. A proposal that omits this resource requirement may be rejected if the assessor does not know how inexpensive or available the item is. The next point is, while your department will accept responsibility if something goes wrong with your project, if you are using their own available system and softwares, while they may not take any responsibility about the external resources that you are exploiting for your research methodology. So in this section, under a separate heading, you might include a list of literatures that you want to have access to, because there are some peer-reviewed journals which require a huge payment to have access to, which will be difficult for the individual to go ahead. If you are not having access to these resources, your project may be impracticable. You may not be able to complete it. Also, having access to particular companies for performing case studies could also be identified here, and the resources that are required. Preparing the project proposal, project plan. It is very useful to present a project plan as part of your proposal, which is very important. Actually, it's a time-bound activity that you are going to state here. This also says that you have a clear pathway to follow in order to complete the total work that we are referring. Reviewing your project proposal. The second golden rule for preparing the project proposal states that you should proofread your complete proposal thoroughly. Check your proposal for spelling mistakes, omissions, and grammatical errors. Have you included all the sections you are supposed to and have completed them in a sufficient depth? Is the proposal well presented? Do the sections flow logically? The following are two examples of final year project proposals for a student on a taught bachelor degree. So we are talking about two type of degrees here. One is a taught, the other is a research based. Both proposals represent the same project and have been kept short for clarity. So we will look at them and then find out which is better and which lacks some required information and that thereby can be rejected. So the proposal that you are seeing is a quite poor proposal. The title is vague and the project type is left blank. The expected outcomes and deliverables do not emphasize clearly what the project intends to achieve. And when you look at the research methodology, simply PRINCE2 is stated, which is just a project management method for large project management. So this proposal has a lot of spelling mistakes and uses abbreviations, which is also not correct. Now look at this proposal, which is different from the one that we have stated. The title is Project Management Issues of Software Migration. The project type is clearly stated. Evaluation project, industry based. Aim and objectives are clear. Aim is to evaluate the use of PRINCE2 method as a means of managing the migration of software from mainframe to client server system. Objectives: an evaluation of tools and methods to assist the technical aspects of the migration and organizational management aspects. Evaluation of similar companies performing migration for comparative purposes. When you look at the outcomes and deliverables, they are precisely stated. An explanation of the perceived benefits, an analysis of the difficulties experienced, a critical evaluation of the PRINCE2 methodology, an outline methodology for future migration projects, a discussion and evaluation of alternative tools. The research methodology type is stated here: case study and action research. Hardware and software requirements statements are also good enough. So preparing the project proposal, having seen the two proposals, we would have identified the pros and cons and good and bad things about the project proposal content. This project proposal, the second one, what we have seen, is fairly good enough, as all the sections are properly stated, mentioned in depth, checked for spelling and grammar errors. So we may have to go in for the second type when you are going to write your project proposal. Choosing your supervisor. Academic departments have different ways of assigning project supervisors to students. So there are limited number of projects a supervisor can effectively supervise. So the allotment should also consider this fact, as well the field of specialization and etc. Having a project supervisor in two scenarios are important. Sharp and others in 2002 research paper identify 5 questions that a student should ask before he goes to choose or take a project supervisor or advisor. 1. About the supervisor, the students should contemplate about these things. 1. What are their records in terms of student completions? That means successfully whether their advisees have completed the research projects. 2. What are their views on the management of student research, in particular the supervisor's role in it. 3. How eminent are they in their specialisms? 4. In addition to being knowledgeable about their subjects, have they high competence in research methodology? 5. How accessible they are. So the fifth point noted here can relate not only to the supervisor's general availability, but to their approachability as well. Now, there are two types of supervision. One, for a taught degree, like what we have. The other is the research-based degree. So, here at the taught degree level, the supervisor's role may be to be more managerial and pastoral rather than technical. For example, helping the students with the project plans, checking whether you are achieving your milestones, and assisting you with any project related problems. At the taught degree level, your supervisor, although may not be from your field, can still be a good supervisor and may well have sufficient technical understanding to assist you when necessary. You should also be able to approach other members of academic staff in your department for technical assistance. However, if there is no one in your department who is knowledgeable in your chosen field, your project is probably not appropriate anyway. Summary. So what we understand here is that you may have to be interested in the project that you're choosing to work with. 2, you may need to have a clear idea about the way how you have to present the topic that you have chosen. You may have to check your proposal for any type of errors. You may have to be very clever in choosing your project supervisor. Finally, you may also have to be smart enough to choose a project from the department or faculty where you have enough expertise. So with this one, we almost complete this chapter. The summary is that choosing the right project is probably the most important stage of any project. When preparing a proposal, the golden rules that we have stated need to be followed. The project proposal shall include the implicit and explicit contents. Questions have to be presented that you should ask yourself before you choose your project supervisor. Dear students, there is an assignment that you have to be working with and submitting to me by email. Look at this, it's very clear here. Thank you. Good luck, the chapter is complete.